Come on, Ethan. One date won't kill you, Mark grinned, shoving his phone into Ethan's face. The photo of Diana lit up the screen. A plain, awkward smile framed by oversized glasses and unkempt hair. She's the nicest girl in accounting, and you're doing her a favor. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. And by her, you mean you? Why don't you go? Mark threw his hands up defensively. She doesn't like me. Besides, it's not like she's ugly. People just... He trailed off awkwardly, his expression saying everything his words didn't. Ethan rolled his eyes, grabbing his coffee cup. Fine. One date. But if this blows up in my face, you owe me big time. Deal. Mark slapped him on the back, his grin widening. Ethan didn't give Diana much thought after that. It was just one night. How bad could it be? The restaurant buzzed with soft chatter as Ethan checked his watch. 5 minutes late. He leaned back in his chair, bored already, when the door swung open. His jaw dropped. In walked a woman, head held high, wearing a sleek black dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Her hair cascaded in silky waves, and her piercing eyes scanned the room confidently. She looked nothing like the photo Mark had shown him. Ethan, she said, stopping at his table. He blinked, trying to hide his shock. Diana? Surprised, she asked, a smirk tugging at her lips as she sat across from him. Yeah, a little. He recovered quickly, his charm kicking in. You look different. I get that a lot, she said casually, her tone unreadable. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Diana than met the eye, and for the first time in a long while he found himself intrigued. The date began smoothly enough. Light banter, shared laughs, and surprisingly deep conversations. Diana wasn't just beautiful. She was sharp, witty, and had an aura that drew him in. But as the night progressed, Ethan noticed small cracks in her facade. A flash of hesitation when he asked about her past. A quick change of subject when he brought up work. What's your story, Diana? He asked finally, leaning forward. Her eyes flickered with something he couldn't place. Pain, maybe? Regret? She hesitated, then smiled tightly. It's complicated, Ethan pressed gently. I've got time, but she didn't answer. Instead, she changed the topic with a grace that felt practiced. Ethan let it go, but his curiosity burned brighter. The night ended with a casual goodbye, but as Ethan walked to his car, a voice stopped him. Stay away from her. He turned to see a colleague from work, Angela, who worked in HR. Her face was pale, her eyes darting nervously. What? Ethan frowned. Diana, Angela whispered, stepping closer. She's not who you think she is. Just be careful. Before he could ask anything, Angela hurried away, leaving Ethan standing in the dimly lit parking lot, a chill running down his spine. The next morning, Ethan couldn't shake Angela's warning. He found himself scrolling through Diana's social media, looking for answers, but her profiles were pristine, too perfect. No old photos, no tagged posts, no trace of her life before the past year. Frustrated, he decided to confront Mark. What do you actually know about Diana? Mark shrugged, sipping his coffee. She's quiet, keeps to herself. Why? Ethan leaned in, lowering his voice. Angela said something weird last night, like she's hiding something. Mark laughed it off. Dude, Angela's paranoid. Don't let her ruin this for you. But Ethan couldn't let it go. Diana's enigmatic aura gnawed at Ethan's mind for days. Her smile haunted him, not in a bad way, but in a way that stirred a need to know more. Just as he resolved to back off and chalk it all up to his imagination, a text lit up his phone. Diana, dinner at my place Friday? He stared at the message, debating. Something about her wasn't adding up, but his curiosity, and perhaps a growing fascination, won. Ethan, see you at 7. Friday came, and Ethan found himself standing in front of a cozy apartment. Diana opened the door, wearing a casual but elegant outfit, her face lighting up in a way that made him forget every warning. Come on in, she said, her voice warm. The apartment was immaculate, filled with soft lighting and the faint scent of lavender. But Ethan's eyes caught a photo on the mantel, a younger Diana, but her face held none of the confidence she carried now. "Dinner's almost ready," Diana called from the kitchen. "Make yourself comfortable." Ethan couldn't help but glance at the photo again, his mind racing. Over dinner, Ethan decided to test the waters. "You've really changed since whenever that photo was taken," he said casually, gesturing to the mantel. Diana paused, her fork hovering mid-air. "Yeah," she said slowly, her expression unreadable. "People grow." He nodded, but her brief answer only fueled his suspicion. "What made you change?" Her eyes darkened for a split second before she smiled. "Let's just say I learned how to stop letting people walk all over me." Ethan leaned back, studying her. "And now, she said, her tone sharp, "I'm exactly who I want to be." The intensity in her voice sent a shiver down his spine. Later that evening, while Diana stepped away to take a call, Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He glanced around her living room, his eyes landing on a leather-bound journal peeking out from a drawer left slightly ajar. He hesitated, then opened it. The pages were filled with scrawled handwriting, but one line stood out, circled multiple times. "They will all pay." Before he could read further, Diana's voice startled him. "Find something interesting?" He snapped the journal shut, his heart pounding. "Just looking around." Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she took the journal from his hands. "I prefer my privacy, Ethan." The ride home was a blur. Ethan's mind raced, replaying Diana's words and the chilling message in her journal. Something wasn't right, and he was determined to find out what. The next day at work, he approached Angela. "What did you mean when you said Diana's not who I think she is?" Angela looked around nervously. "I shouldn't have said anything." "Angela," Ethan pressed, "I need to know." She sighed, lowering her voice. She used to be someone else. Quiet, invisible. Then one day she came back. Different. Confident, yes, but also calculated. People who've wronged her? They don't stick around for long. Ethan's blood ran cold. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He scoured the internet, diving deep into search engines and forums, hoping to uncover anything about Diana's past. Finally, he found an old article buried in a forgotten blog. The headline read, "Bullying Scandal Rocks Local Office. Employee Vanishes After Public Humiliation." The photo accompanying the article was unmistakably Diana, though younger and timid. According to the piece, she had been ruthlessly mocked by colleagues for months before disappearing without a trace. Ethan's stomach churned as the pieces fell into place. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Diana's transformation wasn't just personal growth. It was revenge. The next time he saw her at work, she greeted him warmly, as if nothing was amiss. But Ethan noticed the way she interacted with certain colleagues. Subtle digs masked as jokes, a calculating smile directed at those who laughed a little too loud. She was charming, but there was a sharp edge to her. When she invited him out for drinks again, he hesitated. "I'm not sure I can make it." Her smile faltered, just for a moment. "Are you avoiding me, Ethan?" The question hit harder than it should have, her tone holding an undercurrent of warning. At work, Ethan overheard Diana talking to Mark. She laughed lightly, her voice like honey, but her words made his heart race. "People always underestimate me," she said. "But that's their mistake." Mark laughed, oblivious. "Guess you've got everyone fooled, huh?" Diana's smile sharpened. "Everyone who matters." Ethan couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in his gut. Ethan couldn't stay on the sidelines any longer. That evening, he contacted an old acquaintance from HR, hoping to uncover more about Diana's transformation. Over coffee, Sarah, the former HR manager, reluctantly opened up. "Diana wasn't always like this," Sarah began, her voice low. "When she first joined, she was shy, kept her head down. People weren't kind to her. Some of the senior staff bullied her relentlessly." Ethan leaned in. "What happened after she disappeared?" Sarah hesitated. "A year later, she came back with a new position, higher up the ladder. Rumors flew, but no one dared say anything. Then strange things started happening. One of her old tormentors had a nervous breakdown. Another was quietly fired after an internal audit exposed fraud. Diana never said anything, but it felt like she orchestrated it. Ethan's chest tightened. Diana wasn't just taking revenge. She was dismantling lives. The next day, Ethan approached Mark, who had been spending more time with Diana. "Hey, man, can we talk?" Mark laughed. "What now, Ethan? Are you still obsessing over Diana?" Ethan grabbed his arm, his tone serious. "She's not who you think she is. I'm telling you, something's off." Mark rolled his eyes. "You're paranoid. Diana's great. Besides, it's not like she's plotting some grand scheme." But Ethan noticed Diana watching them from across the room, her gaze unblinking. A chill ran down his spine. That evening, Ethan received a cryptic email from an anonymous sender. "If you want answers, meet me at the old coffee shop on 9th Street. Midnight." Against his better judgment, he went. The coffee shop was dimly lit and empty, save for a lone figure sitting in the corner. "Angela," he said, surprised. She motioned for him to sit. "I don't have much time. Diana's more dangerous than you think." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "She doesn't just ruin people's careers. She destroys them. I've seen her manipulate everything from relationships to finances." And now, Angela hesitated. "She's fixated on you." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Why me?" "You're a challenge," Angela whispered. "She's testing you. But if you don't play by her rules, she'll crush you like the others." Ethan tried to distance himself from Diana after that, but she made it impossible. At work, she began seeking him out more often, asking for help with projects and making subtle comments that hinted at their connection. "You've been quiet lately," she said one afternoon, cornering him in the break room. "Is something wrong?" Ethan forced a smile. "Just busy." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but her tone remained light. "Well, let me know if you need anything. I've got your back." The words sounded supportive, but Ethan felt the weight of an unspoken threat. A week later, chaos erupted in the office. Mark had been caught in a compromising situation. A major error in a client account had cost the company thousands. Diana was the one who reported it. Ethan confronted her after hours. "Did you set Mark up?" She tilted her head, her expression calm. "Why would I do that?" "Because you wanted to make an example of him," Ethan accused. "He trusted you." Diana stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Trust is a dangerous thing, Ethan. Maybe you should learn that." Ethan decided he couldn't let Diana continue her games unchecked. He reached out to Sarah again, asking for any records or files that might expose Diana's manipulations. "You're playing with fire," Sarah warned as she handed him a USB drive. "Be careful." The drive contained a treasure trove of information, emails, messages, and reports that painted a clear picture of Diana's calculated moves. Armed with evidence, Ethan confronted Diana in a private meeting room. He tossed the USB drive onto the table. "Care to explain this?" he demanded. Diana picked up the drive, her expression unreadable. "You've been busy. People deserve to know the truth about you," Ethan said, his voice firm. Her smile was ice cold. "And what makes you think they'll believe you over me?" Diana's words hung in the air, but Ethan didn't back down. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, his tone steady. Her smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "You should be." As she left the room, Ethan realized that exposing Diana wouldn't be easy. She had spent years building a web of influence, and taking her down would require more than just evidence. It would take cunning. Ethan's resolve grew stronger, but so did Diana's subtle grip on his life. Her tactics shifted. She wasn't just charming him anymore. She began planting seeds of doubt about him in the office. Small comments about his performance during meetings, a few innocent mentions of mistakes he hadn't made. "I heard Ethan's been distracted lately," Diana said one day, loud enough for the team to overhear. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes met his, daring him to react. By the end of the week, Ethan felt the weight of whispers following him. Diana was isolating him, just as she'd done to others before. Desperate for help, Ethan reached out to Angela again. "She's coming after me," he admitted, his voice tight with frustration. Angela nodded. "That's her game. She makes you question yourself until no one's on your side. Then how do I stop her? Ethan asked. Angela hesitated. There's one person who might help. Someone who survived her wrath. But they won't talk unless you give them a reason to trust you. Ethan frowned. Who? Gregory Hayes, Angela said, her tone grave. He used to work here. She tore his life apart, but he managed to rebuild. If anyone knows how to fight her, it's him. Tracking Gregory down wasn't easy. Ethan finally found him living in a small town an hour away, running a modest bookstore. Gregory was hesitant at first, but when Ethan mentioned Diana, his expression darkened. Why would you bring her name here? She's targeting me now, Ethan explained. I need to know how you got away. Gregory let out a bitter laugh. Got away? She ruined my career, my marriage, my reputation. I didn't escape. I survived. Then help me, Ethan pleaded. Gregory's gaze softened. The only way to stop her is to expose her in a way she can't control. But you'll need proof, allies, and the will to see it through. Because once you start, she won't stop until you're finished. Ethan left Gregory's shop with a clearer sense of purpose. He spent the next few days gathering allies, Angela, Sarah, and a few other colleagues who had grown suspicious of Diana's motives. Together, they devised a plan to expose her manipulations. They'd collect undeniable proof of her schemes, present it to HR and upper management, and ensure it couldn't be buried. But Ethan knew Diana would sense something was coming. She always seemed one step ahead. Just as Ethan's team began gathering evidence, Diana made her move. HR called Ethan into a meeting, claiming there had been complaints about his conduct. Complaints? Ethan asked, stunned. Multiple colleagues have expressed concerns about your professionalism, the HR rep said, glancing at a file. Ethan's mind raced. This was Diana's doing, her attempt to discredit him before he could act. That's not true, Ethan said firmly. This is a setup, but the HR rep's expression remained neutral. We'll need to investigate further. Ethan left the meeting, furious but more determined than ever. That evening, Ethan confronted Diana in the parking lot. Why are you doing this? He demanded, his voice shaking with anger. Diana leaned against her car, her expression calm and almost amused. Doing what? You know exactly what I mean. Ethan snapped. You've been sabotaging me, just like you did to everyone else who stood in your way. Diana's eyes narrowed. And what are you going to do about it, Ethan? Cry to HR. They already think you're the problem. Her words hit hard, but Ethan refused to back down. This isn't over. Diana smirked. It never is. Ethan's team finally uncovered a critical piece of evidence. A recorded conversation between Diana and one of her previous victims, in which she admitted to manipulating events to teach people a lesson. Armed with the recording and a timeline of Diana's actions, they prepared to present their case to upper management. But Ethan knew it wouldn't be enough to simply show the evidence. They had to anticipate Diana's counterarguments and ensure there were enough witnesses to corroborate the truth. The day of the meeting arrived. Diana sat at the head of the table, her demeanor cool and confident. Ethan and his team presented their evidence methodically, piece by piece. As the recording played, Diana's expression finally shifted. For the first time, Ethan saw a crack in her armor. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice sharp. You're taking things out of context. But Ethan didn't back down. It's not just the recording. It's the pattern. You've been manipulating people and situations for years. The room fell silent as management reviewed the evidence. After hours of deliberation, the verdict came down. Diana was suspended pending further investigation, her influence finally broken. As she packed her things, she passed Ethan's desk, her eyes cold. You think you've won? Ethan met her gaze. I didn't do this to win. I did it to stop you. Diana's smile returned, but it was empty. We'll see. With Diana gone, the office began to heal. Ethan's name was cleared, and the team slowly returned to normal. But the experience left its mark on him. He realized the importance of standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you. And though Diana's shadow lingered, Ethan knew he'd never let her, or anyone like her, hold power over him again.